Morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us on this lovely sunny morning. I feel really privileged to be hosting today to discuss a topic that's really close to my heart: wellbeing and health in the workplace. As a designer, creating environments that adapt to individuals and embrace diversity and really enrich the experience of the people that use the space is what we strive to achieve in our utopia. However, we're finding that as workplace expectations are changing, the demand for variety, autonomy and flexibility is definitely on the rise. The focus we're finding now is much more on the people that occupy the space, and therefore the experience that they have in both that physical and virtual place is more important to consider. We're in a much different place where we're now compared to where we have been in the last couple of years during the depths of the pandemic. Companies and employees have experienced seismic changes in the way that they work. Everyone has their own experiences that they can bring to the table, but it's really making companies redefine their organizations' values and purpose to put people before profit. Now, because of this, we're finding that wellbeing has been thrust very much into the spotlight, and this is why we're talking today around how can we consider the physical, the social and the virtual workplace to be considered equally when promoting wellbeing, the understanding that work and life integration and boundaries don't stop at the time you stop work. So we're going to be talking today about how the workplace environment can support health and wellbeing by design, and what factors can we measure when it comes to wellbeing. While we can't transcribe what those longer term working models are going to be, and we don't have all the answers, we do know that listening to employees will definitely become more crucial than ever, and much where corporate success should be measured very much around employee happiness and wellbeing. Joining me on the panel today, we've got two fantastic speakers. We've got Harry, who is the CEO and co-founder of Champion Health, and we've got Nathan, who is the Research and Insight Manager at Orange Box. At the end of the session, we'll be holding an open Q&A at the end of the webinar. So feel free to pop your questions in at the bottom of the screen throughout the duration of the chat, or indeed at the end. So to kickstart our discussion today, Harry, I know personally the story behind Champion Health and why you do what you do. Can you share this with the audience?
Yeah, so thank you, Jo. Thank you for putting this on as well, because I know how much work goes into putting these events on. So if I'm to rewind 4 years, I was working for the largest workplace health and wellbeing provider in the UK. And having a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, I was very underwhelmed with the service that they were delivering. It was very reactive. It only looked at physical health. Loads of people were coming in and saying, I need support with my sleep, with parenting, with my mental health, with my financial well-being. And I came up with this concept of building the Netflix of well-being, whereby you can bring all areas of well-being in an integrated way into one unified place. And so we were founded, and I left this organization, took the bold/naive move to go and found my own company at the grand old age of 23. And we were founded with a team of over 60 academics, clinical psychologists, professors in neuroscience. We had a really strong group of well-being expertise. But if I'm being completely open and honest with all of you today, I didn't know how to run a business from the operational side of things. And so I approached a close friend of mine. I coached his kids at cricket. He was the youngest director on the FTSE 100 at the time. His career had gone from strength to strength. And you know those people that don't have the time, but they find the time? That was James to me. Now, tragically, 3.5 years ago, following a short bout of workplace stress and 6 months into Champion, my friend and mentor, James, ended up taking his own life. And that came as a huge shock to me. That then changed the business from something that I wanted to work to something that I needed to work. And James was someone that lived with positive mental well-being throughout his life. It was a 2-week bout of stress. And that led to a fire in my belly and an internal mission to change and save lives by making healthier more accessible for people. So for people like James that are well and thriving for the majority of their lives, how can we continue that in a proactive way? But then for people that are struggling, how can we get them into the right services faster and earlier than before? So that's really the mission and the vision behind Champion going forwards.
Thanks, Harry. That's a really, really strong story, and definitely one that will resonate with a lot of people. Now, I know we have spoken in quite a lot of depth around the workplace health report that Champion have recently released that talks a lot about mental health, wellbeing and productivity. Can you explain what the key findings are from the report?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been quite a whirlwind. So we launched it in January. It's all of the data that we collected around all areas of wellbeing and looking at productivity and performance as well, because that's one of the most important things, to look at that correlation. Does it have an effect on the bottom line and on the business, as well as on humans' lives too? And what we found was that there's a huge correlation between mental well-being and performance within our organisations. So that's not just performance through increases in productivity, it was increases in sales, more creativity within the marketing departments, reduced absenteeism, reduced staff turnover. We know how hard it is to recruit at the moment. It is within any business, especially within certain sectors at the minute. And it actually showed that it improved recruitment strategies as well. And so that's a huge area to look at. And it wasn't just mental health, it was also musculoskeletal health. But what we found is that musculoskeletal health is a huge area that's being ignored at the moment. Around 60% of the UK workforce, it increases when it's hybrid workers as well, are experiencing back pain, neck pain, knee pain, all sorts of pain at the moment. And they're trying to battle through it. Now, there are many reasons for this, and there are many things that we can do that we'll go on to shortly, but that's something for us just to be aware of within our organisations, again, especially in the design, and something that Joe and Nathan, you are specialists within. But from people that have worked from their sofas, worked from their kitchen tables, it's now having that effect, and it's going to lead to huge spikes in absenteeism going forwards. And the final area from the report as well was that many people think that employees are disengaged with well-being. For me, they're not disengaged with well-being. 90% of employees want to make changes to their well-being. They're just not being provided with the right tools, the right platform, and the right messaging at the moment, communications. So that's something that we're really looking to drive behind. Now, again, I'll share more about what we can do that shortly. But I'll send a link to the report, or I'll send it to yourself, Joe. You can forward it across to everyone. It's been referenced in Forbes all the way through to national newspapers. So it's been an incredible piece of research.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, who I thought I was fairly clued up on wellbeing, even for me, reading through that report, it's really insightful and actually connects all the dots, all the things that we're thinking about, but it doesn't give you, or certainly I wasn't clued up to how we can strategize and move that forward. We've come out of this pandemic with so many experiences, and health and wellbeing, one of those things that everyone has felt in singly and very differently. So it's really interesting to see how this report kind of captures that in its entirety. So just while we're talking about health, how do you think workplaces can break the stigma around mental health and really create workplaces that positively embrace people in their entirety? And have you seen any significant change to this, since the pandemic?
Yeah, there's been huge changes, and we'll go on to that in a minute. But the stigma is still there within many organisations. Now, I think there's a lot of people that say there's a huge stigma in the workplace. I've seen workplaces where there's zero stigma. I've seen workplaces where there's huge stigma. So what I don't want to do is say every organisation there is stigma, because some have done incredible work to be able to reduce it. Now, one of the key things for reducing the stigma, from what we've seen working with global organisations, we work in over 60 countries now with blue chip companies, is the ones that get it right are the ones that really walk the walk. They don't just talk the talk. It's very easy to put out a statement that our employees are our best assets, but then all you care about is the financials and the bottom line, and you're getting rid of people left, right and centre. Now, of course, we need to make tough business decisions at times, but that needs to be factored in with the well-being of our team going forwards as well. Makes perfect business sense as well as moral sense going forwards. But I guess a key place within here is looking at senior leadership. And senior leadership really set the tone, and it goes top down. It goes from senior leadership, middle management will follow, and then it's the boots on the ground and employees. And I know the structure is a bit more complex than that within our organisations, but at its simplest form, we need senior leaders brought in. We need wellbeing to be a board level item on the agenda of the board meetings. We need a statement that actually is congruent to the actions as well, and very easy again making a statement and then not living up to it. And I think that's a really important thing then, to get people living and breathing well-being. Now, if I look at, again, James and my friend and mentor's story, a big thing was that were the senior leadership engaged? Not a huge amount. And it was the receptionist that spotted the warning signs of James struggling. and the senior leaders had all of this training. It wasn't being implemented, but actually the boots on the ground didn't have this kind of training. So this person didn't know what to say, didn't know how to approach it, didn't know if she'd make the problem worse by approaching it. And of course, we know that that's not the case as long as it's approached in a sensitive way. So that's a really big focus for me, is looking at the whole of the organisation. It starts with senior leadership and their actions. It filters down to middle management, and then the boots on the ground to be able to get everyone talking about mental health and wellbeing.
Very, very interesting. And Harry, for you, when working with companies, often do you find, and I know in my experience, companies often don't know how to even approach wellbeing strategies or what to implement for very much the fear of getting it wrong. I suppose when we start to think about companies, they are all made up very individually of people, and those people we want to look after. So often companies, I find, don't approach it because they're afraid of what could happen if it's not implemented correctly. So what advice can you share based on the companies you've worked with and where it has been really successful?
Oh, well, I think that's something that's really important to know, Jo, is that many companies sweep it under the carpet because they don't know what to do. They're fearful of making mistakes and errors. And as a shameless plug, that's what Champion Health do, is support you on that journey of building a robust wellbeing strategy with our wellbeing experts within there for the very reasons that you've just mentioned. Now, especially within HR departments, they're not necessarily wellbeing experts, they're HR experts. And so, again, having that partner to be able to support them going forwards is absolutely vital. But if you were to go at it on your own, what I would strongly advise is to initially do an index or an audit on what the services are that you have, what the policies and procedures are, because they're really important. Have you got a menopause policy? Have you got an absence policy? Have you got a bullying harassment policy, for example? So employees know exactly where they stand if they're experiencing something like that. It then also look at your data, and hopefully you have some data on absence data, staff turnover, exit interview data, but also try and gather proactive data. And again, that's something that we do at Champion. You can look to do it in your own format through surveys and engagement surveys within there, but try and gather data to see where the gaps are, to see what you're doing really well, first of all, and that's really important, but also see where the gaps are in the analysis within there. And then the final thing is listen and act upon what employees want and what they need. Employees know what they need more than anyone else. And if we can deliver what they need, the services and interventions, the strategy is going to be so much more successful. Often what we see is senior leaders making the decisions as this is what we're going to do, this is the intervention, this is the service, this is what the policy and procedure looks like. Actually, we really need to involve the employees as a key stakeholder. And then if other employees know that it's been devised by their team, people like them in a similar position, they're going to engage with it. And again, I'm making this a little bit more simple than it actually is within here. But if we can simplify what is quite a complex process, you're going to have a robust wellbeing strategy at the end of it.
Yeah, I think that's some very valuable words there. And based on the companies, and I think for some of them, Harry, are the largest organisations in the UK. Can you give us some insight into what's been learned in their workplace health space?
Yeah, so I think there's been a big shift. We talk about the Great Resignation as a major area at the moment, and recruiting, retaining the best talent is hard at the minute for various reasons. And what we've seen is a bit of a shift in the power from employer to employee. And it's something that I think is actually a really positive thing because we need to include all of our employees in the decision making, because we're going to have more diversity of thought. We're going to have more diversity across our teams, and that's going to lead to better business performance. And what we see again with the members and the organisations that treat their staff well, they've not actually got a problem with the Great Resignation. It's the ones that aren't treating their staff well. There might be gaps within middle management training that are saying there's huge issues retaining, recruiting talent. Some of these clients, or not clients necessarily, but people we talk to, we found that they don't even give feedback as a part of the recruitment process if someone doesn't get a job. So that then they tell 10 of their friends, they tell 10 of their friends, it all then spreads. And people aren't going to go to that organisation. We only need to look at the likes of P&O Ferries lately in terms of what's happened there. And they've been putting out some incredible statements in the last year around looking after employee wellbeing. Again, it's walking the walk as well as talking the talk within there. But I think those organisations that are truly investing in their employees, they aren't just saying they're the best asset, they are their best asset, and they're looking after them, are the ones that are absolutely flying at the moment, not just in terms of recruitment and retention, but also business performance too.
Interesting. And when we talk about the field of workplace health, how do you see the next couple of years evolving? I suppose if they're anything like the 2 years we've been through, then we might see another seismic change, but hopefully it should be a bit more positive, let's say. How do you see that playing out?
I really hope so. And this conversation has evolved so much across the last couple of years. And if there's any silver lining, that is one of them. The organisations are now really taking this topic seriously. There were many doing it before. There were some that were slightly hesitant and now just dived into it and seen all of the benefits within here. But for me, if I look at the workplace health space at the moment, we're looking at launching a campaign that is giving HR directors earmuffs because the space is just so noisy. There's so many different wellbeing providers doing their own individual thing. It's just so disjointed, and trying to communicate 15 different apps or 15 different services to employees, 15 times the logins, 15 times the account management view. It's just an absolute nightmare. And I think the vision for Champion and the vision, what it should be if we've got any of our competitors listening to this conversation, is to bring it all into one unified place, make it easy for people. That's a really important thing. If we look at Apple, if we look at Netflix, if we look at Spotify, they make what they do easy. I've got all of my music from ABBA, because I've got an awful taste in music, through to Arctic Monkeys, because I'm from Sheffield, on Spotify. Netflix, I've got Peppa Pig for my 7-year-old nephew that's through my algorithms, through to Peaky Blinders, for example. And that's what we need to do with wellbeing, is to bring it into one unified place. So that's the first place that I'd start with. The second place is the legal implications. And we're talking to the health and safety executive, and there are already legal implications for not conducting stress risk assessments within your workforce. So for anyone that has 5 or more employees within their organisation, they must conduct stress risk assessments across their workforce. Many organisations don't know this, and that is a big risk to the business. But there's going to be legal implications around training, especially for people managers and senior leaders. Just like we do with health and safety, wellbeing is now getting to that stage. So that's the second area around the legality of what's evolving in the space. And then the third area for me is that wellbeing, for so long, I've heard it referred to as a perk or a benefit. And when employees hear that wellbeing is a perk or a benefit, it just doesn't quite sit right with me. It's not a perk or a benefit, it's a necessity. If we aren't well, we can't work, or we definitely can't work to a productive way. We may turn up to work, but are we really bringing up our full selves to work? Are we performing at the level that we should be and want to be? And so I think that's a big shift in the mindset, especially of boards, is wellbeing is going to shift from what is a perk to what is a necessity going forwards.
Definitely agree there. And I think it goes back to the point I made earlier around the onus now being a lot more around your people. So very much listening to your people, talking to your people. And I think that all in itself will just up the level of engagement to really drive out, what we should be working towards. Nathan, for you, how do you see workplace wellbeing support being prioritised over the next couple of years and months even?
Well, hi, everyone. Before that, Harry, I must say that the work that you're doing with Champion Health is just fantastic. And I was lucky enough to download the report from the Champion Health website a few weeks ago, and it's fabulous. So anybody out there looking to affect change or construct a wellness and well-being strategy for their business, that's a great place to start. So you've done some fabulous work, Harry. And I'm on some sort of commission structure, it must seem. The really good news is that the surveys that we're tracking at Orange Box is that during the very rocky period of the last 2 years, wellness and sustainability have remained very, very high on the list of valued challenges for us all to overcome. Usually in economic downturn, those two considerations tend to fall off a cliff. We revert back to our sort of Maslow hierarchy of needs, and we simply look for more security, job security. So those two remaining high, I think, is sort of testament to where we currently are in the United Kingdom at the moment in regards to championing health. In the short term, I think a wellness strategy, and a well-considered one, can be the difference between attracting people back into offices. That's what we're hearing, isn't it, within the media discourse at the moment, and within the City of London. We want to get people back into our buildings, into our offices. Well, one way in which we can do that, for sure, is by engaging within a fantastic new wellbeing strategy, leveraging the things that we can, physical, mental, and social health. That can be one way in which we can do that. In the medium term, and I of course come from this slightly more sort of a slimmer, refined point of view. So Harry's looking at sort of holistically. I come from sort of furniture design. We need to flip the office from being the health problem to being the wellness solution. And we need to do that really, really quickly. Because we had a problem previously where we were all sedentary and, work was very transactional. And so we do need to flip that. And of course, that goes beyond. Harry's done a great job of outlining that that's more than just a free bowl of fruit, at our disposal on a Monday morning. And on Friday, the fruit is all moldy and it's not something you want engaging anyway. But it's a tick box exercise for certain organizations. So that's one way in which we need to really flip the way in which we think about. And okay, you spoke earlier, Joe, about a utopia. And I like your sentiment, Joe. It's not a perk, Harry. So, this idea that we can be more engaged or refreshed or energized or more positive at the end of the working day than when we arrived. I get a lot of negative feedback from that, and that this is some sort of pipe dream of mine or our organisation at Orange Box. But we seriously need to put this on the mandate for our organisations and think about things like fitness-centred design rather than sort of more transactionary battery hen type working. So it's a challenge, but within furniture design, we can help within space design and workplace design. It's something that can be leveraged.
That's quite it's quite insightful to see the difference from more holistic approach to more of a how can we adapt the work environment, both in as an internal configuration and the impact it can have. For me, the psychology behind workplace design needs to go hand in hand with the wellbeing piece. Nathan, what sort of strategies can workplace designers implement to support physical, mental, and social health?
Well, probably the lowest hanging fruit at the moment is privacy. And all of the surveys that you'll track, even within the Champion Health survey, noise pollution within workplace is the number one bugbear, really, for people when they cross the threshold into a working environment. And so how can we think about layers of privacy within the built environment, within our architecture? So we appreciate that across our teams, we might have no idea what tasks are at hand at any one moment. And so we have to offer people a plethora of different work settings. But not just thinking about work setting design, thinking about the privacy that work setting offers you. So we've drawn them out at Orange Box across 5 different layers, but I'll talk about the sort of 2 polarizing ones of number 1 and number 5. Number 1 is sort of no man's land. It's sort of an open environment where there are no rules of engagement. Etiquette is that you can interrupt anyone at any point. Now, for some people, this sounds like an absolute nightmare. However, it actually is a conducive working environment for people who maybe work in sales, who want to share information on projects. And so, or it's sort of convivial for high levels of social interaction. So this can be really good, especially after the 2 years that we've just had where maybe we're lacking some of that injection of company culture. So number 1 is this open floor plate where you can roam around and passing pedestrians and you can interrupt at any point. One of the challenges, of course, is that often you go to Silicon Valley where some of our clients are, and they've engaged in these huge warehouses. They've bought into this big warehouse type development, and all of their workspace is number 1. It's just all open, no man's land. So they need to build in layers of privacy. And then you jump all the way to number 5, of course, which is just something that I'm in right now. You might not be able to see it, but I'm in sort of a booth of individual privacy. This is my moment of seclusion. I'll go and find people when I want to go and find them. if somebody did come and knock on this door right now, that would be sort of poor form, bad etiquette, because I'm in my privacy level number 5. So, and in between 3, 4, 5, you're playing with curtain poles, you're playing with suspended ceiling heights, raised floors, carpets, you're playing with acoustic baffles, you're playing with psychoacoustics. And so there are ways in which good architects, good furniture suppliers can help with space design. The other thing that we can look to do within our environments is actually go beyond just the sort of bare minimum that you need. Certain legal departments for big corporates, they'll give you just the right amount of oxygen that you need to survive that day. That's the British standard that they're going to supply you, and that's what you're going to get. And I think we're now in a period, because well-being being really high on the mandate for employees, is that we need to go beyond the standards. And one way we can do that is something called sensory ergonomics. And so we all experience the phenomenon of alesthesia, meaning that as human beings, we enjoy sensory stimuli. And across our working day and across our lives, we enjoy the senses being stimulated in various different ways. And unfortunately, offices and buildings are amazing at keeping senses constant. Same amount of light, same amount of heating, same amount of airflow hitting your skin. And so actually within a high-performing workplace, we should be thinking about changing all of that and offering people different environments in which they can experience different things. And so, citrus, for example, the fragrance of citrus does improve. It's been proven to improve perceived productivity. Jasmine can calm and restore, and it can lower heart rate and therefore anxiety. So there are things in which we can do. Sight out of windows, it's been proven that patients will recover quicker with good levels of sight outside of to nature in comparison to those who don't. And so we can play with all of our senses. In the world of retail and hospitality, they're doing this all the time. You think about hotel design. You walk into the reception of some fancy hotel in Miami or London, and you're getting hit with the same fragrance to evoke some sort of emotion. And we should be doing that within workplace. Not for consumerism, not so you buy a fresh baked croissant in Waitrose. We should be doing it for the right reasons. And I think the businesses that engage in sensory ergonomics might be the ones that win out in the short to medium term.
Yeah, I think, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially when considering, that diversity piece. Creating an inclusive workspace that is more neurodiverse, so that people can really enjoy the environment because those details have been considered. And like you said, the homework's already been done. When you go into a shop or you go into a hotel, they've already done that. And I think workplace design has got a little way to catch up to try and grasp that. When we talk about multi-generational workforces, how important is it that we create the harmony to support them in our future workspaces?
Yeah, this has been a nut that we've all been trying to crack. As when we all think about workplace and the harmony, and trying to create the best space that we possibly can to make people flourish and feel creative and valued and productive. The mix of generations has been something that we've needed to overcome and integrate. It comes down to levels of expectations and what our generations expect from an employer or from a built environment. Our surveys are suggesting that our younger people within workplace expect their managers to be a bit more supportive and to support them. And maybe this comes from sort of the idea of helicopter parenting, and that, a parenting style which does influence generational behaviors significantly. Maybe managers needing to be a bit more hands-on for our younger people, whereas historically not needed to do that for Gen X or boomers. So maybe behaving more like a therapist, but then that manager might seem perhaps that's a sort of burden put upon them that they perhaps didn't ask for. So this is something that there's levels of expectations is going to be a challenge. Something that we're seeing a lot of with some fruit, and perhaps Harry would be exposed to a lot more of this in his day-to-day consulting, is reverse mentoring. Often traditional businesses sort of will transmit information through their organization on a need-to-know basis. And so what often normally happens is that information will go upwards. It'll go up the chain to senior management, and it doesn't often trickle down. But we often see when businesses move from sort of hierarchical structures to more networked, sort of more diverse and integrated structures, that actually people can reap benefits with being more connected to that organization. And so reverse mentoring can help in that younger people, mentoring with older people within workplace can really, really help. And this isn't just about teaching somebody in your team to turn on Instagram. This is far more than that. It's about avoiding groupthink. It's about moving away from Harry already touched upon it. It can be a virus. So getting a sort of multi-generational views to the top and disperse as quickly as possible is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of experience shared there as well, for sure. I think we've got quite a few questions that are filling up the chat box right now. So I'm just going to pull some for Harry. How do we get over the fear of people losing their jobs, even now people are being British about it and taking it on the chin, don't make a fuss, etc.?
Yeah, I think that is a really interesting comment, especially about being British about it, because we're working in, as I mentioned, 60 countries globally. And I would say that the UK, and this might be quite a sad reflection on the other countries, are the most progressive when it comes to mental well-being. So in the Americas, in South America, and Middle East, for example, as well as the rest of Europe, the UK is leading the way on this. Now, we've still got a long way to go. But it's fascinating, I thought, when it came to that comment. And I think that's the stigma that's kicking in around that chin up, that stiff upper lip. It could even be man up when it comes to men's mental health. And that's one of the big reasons why male suicides are 3 times greater than females within there. But I think it all comes down again to senior leadership. And if senior leaders don't want to engage at all, and I saw a comment within the chat as well, they won't engage. But what they may find is that the teams aren't as productive. Team members will leave. They're not going to be able to get this new generation of workers that want to work hard, I believe, but also want to look after their mental well-being and enjoy the 1/3 of their lives that they spend at work. So I think it's going to be a delayed impact on those senior leaders. We can't force them to do it necessarily. There's the legislation there, but I agree it's not being enforced to the level that it needs to be. But again, that's one of my predictions in the next 2 years, that it will start being enforced more and more. So I feel like Britain are actually leading the way in many ways. And it comes down to senior leaders and how much they want to and need to engage with this topic. Very soon, they're going to need to engage with it because they're going to struggle to recruit, retain, all of the things that's just vital for business performance.
Yeah, and I suppose it's not something you can delay until tomorrow. It's an issue that needs to be addressed right now. So we've got, do you have any advice as to how to get senior leadership engaged and walking the walk? I think it'll be a good question to field to both of you. Nathan, did you want to pick that up first?
Yeah, I think it's, in the very first instance, they need to be involved. So it's not a case of somebody maybe bringing a program to them. It's something that they need to be actively engaged in at the very first instance, because often some things can be regarded as a cost. There seems to be a culture within British organizations. This is a sweeping statement, by the way. This is a generalization, but often business leaders can be they can be no people, and with mental, physical, and social health, we need yes people, and so it's often can be regarded as a cost or something that we haven't just historically done before. So there needs to be buy-in from the very, 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 very top, but very, very quickly. It's simply outlining very, very clearly the ROI here and matching up the benefits of a well-designed, structured strategy for well-being, and what benefits to your business and your customers are going to. So marrying that up in the very first instance is going to be very clear for business leaders, because if they're only concerned about profit, then we need to very clearly outline that there is going to be a hit or some sort of damage if this isn't considered.
Yeah,
no, I would echo that as well, Nathan. I think there's a really big point in meeting people where they're at and seeing what are their motives. Are their motives to grow an organisation that is employing people, that's putting money back into society? Is it the moral motive, or is it actually we don't want to get caught out here in the legal motive? Is it around recruitment and business performance? And if we can meet those senior leaders where they're at, there is time to be able to win them around with this. But I would break it down to three things, and it echoes some of what Nathan's just mentioned. The first one is the moral case when it comes to this topic. And a lot of senior leaders that I talk to, very similar to my friend and mentor, James, and that story resonates with them, that they live with positive mental well-being. James was a senior director on the FTSE 100 at the time. And so that's something that's really important for them to realise, that they aren't bulletproof within here. We all have mental health all of the time. We need to nourish it and take care of it as much as we can. So looking at that moral case, first of all, that it's important to look after ourselves, the people around us, be able to get some qualitative data as well from people saying we need our mental well-being looked after more and more. And that moral case is really important for many senior leaders, and especially compassionate and empathetic ones. And they are, from the research that Google have done, the best leaders in our organizations. The second case, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's super important to drum home, is then that legal case. And again, presenting that legal case back to them, really important. The health and safety executive stress risk assessment, I'll send a link to it. Really clear, if you have 5 or more employees, you must be conducting stress risk assessments on the workforce and then acting upon it. And the third element, again, is that business case. And we can break down so many areas within that business case, from, as I say, sales, marketing, the creativity element, the research and development, recruitment, retention. There's just so many areas within here that I'm going to lose my voice, I think, by the end of it. So I break down those 3 things specifically. If you're still not getting through, maybe it's not the organisation that you want to be working in going forwards. That might be a self-reflection for you, and that might be where the Great Resignation kicks in for this organisation.
Very, very, very good words there. I think a lot of people will take quite a lot of advice from that question there. So just one more before we wrap up. We have a number of individuals who really want to get involved in being mental health champions. Where is the best place to start? That's for you, Harry.
Yeah, so I've dropped Sarah a private message as well. So hopefully that's come through. I think that the first place is to be able to, well, you've done the first thing of finding the individuals that are engaged in this topic. Just make sure, though, that it's not all a similar group of employees. That's a really big thing. So sometimes it can be a specific demographic. So it might be men that are 20 to 30, or it might be women that are 40 to 50. What we want is diversity within those wellbeing champions. And we also want different layers within the business as well. So we want senior leaders to be mental health champions. We want people on the ground within there. Now, we run a mental health champions course at Champion. That's something that we do within here. And our belief is that we want everyone within the organisation to have some level of understanding when it comes to mental health and wellbeing. But then we have a specific group that meets either monthly or quarterly to be able to discuss the challenges when it comes to wellbeing, that can report back up into the board level. And so that's something I'm more than happy for anyone that would like to just spend 15, 20 minutes chatting through with you, because there's loads more, and I'm conscious of time, and also getting Nathan to answer the question as well. So I'll pop my email in the chat, and I'm more than happy to go through how you can roll that out.
Well,
Good.
Sorry,
Nathan, did you want to? Yeah, do you want to add something in there?
Well, I was just about to say that I didn't need to, because Harry had done a fabulous job. But I think to say that we're all now more in tune with how we like to work. I think over the last 2 years, we've got a sense of these sort of more novel moments at home that actually start to rebalance us a little bit. You know, skipping a commute means that I get a healthier breakfast. I get to see a friend on lunch. I get to the gym class that I never made before. So we're all a bit more in tune with how we like to work. And I think it's, so employers are sort of aware, employees are aware. It's the employers at the moment, it's all our organizations that are sort of scrambling a little bit in how to understand and create environments and business models and spaces that are correct for us. So right back to where Harry started, it seems to have flipped to sort of a employee empowered environment, and that's good. That's really, really a positive change for us all. Yeah,
I think there's so many, as much as people's experiences over the last couple of years have people have come out of could have been quite a dark place. Actually, there are so many positives that we can draw from this, from people's experiences, that we can map into the workplace. For me as a designer, we're working with clients every day who each have their own experiences too. So for me, it's quite a fulfilling sense, and to work with Harry and Nathan there to encompass the wellbeing side of things is fantastic, to give us an opportunity to really have that transformational change that can have an effect on an individual level, but also on a corporate level as well. So I think that's all we've got time for today, but thank you so much, Harry and Nathan. Some fantastic words there, and hopefully people have come away with some insightful thoughts. We will be picking up any questions that we haven't managed to get to answer today, and feel free to drop any one of us a message after the webinar. Thank you again, and hopefully enjoy the rest of your sunny Thursday.